I'll post again. Harry! Hermione was tugging at his sleeve, staring at her watch. We've exactly 10 minutes before we have to get back down to the hospital wing without anybody seeing us before Dumbledore locks the door. Okay, said Harry, wrenching his gaze from the sky. Let's go. They slipped through the doorway behind them and down tightly spiraling stone staircase. As they reached the bottom of it, they heard voices. They flattened themselves against the wall and listened. It sounded like Fudge and Snape. They were talking quickly in the corridor in the front of the staircase. Only hope Dumbledore's not going to make difficulties, Snape was saying. The kiss will be performed immediately. As soon as McNair returns with the Dementors, this whole black affair has been highly embarrassing. I can't tell you how much I'm looking forward to informing the Daily Prophet that we've got him at last. Oh, I dare say they'll want to interview you, Snape. And once young Harry's back in the right mind, I expect he'll want to tell the Prophet exactly how you saved him. Harry clenched his teeth, caught a glimpse of Snape's smirk as he and Fudge passed Harry and Hermione's hiding place. Their footsteps died away. Harry and Hermione waited a few moments to make sure they'd really gone. Then they started to run up the opposite direction, down to one staircase, another, and along the corridor, and they heard a cackling ahead. Peeves! Harry muttered, grabbing Hermione's wrist. In here! He tore in the deserted classroom to their left, just in time. Peeves seemed to be bouncing along the corridor in a boisterous good spirits, laughing his head off. Oh, he's horrible, whispered Hermione, her ear to the door. I bet he's all excited because the Dementors are going to finish off Sirius. She checked her watch. 3 minutes, Harry! She checked They waited until Peeves' gloating voice had faded into the distance. Then they slid back around the room, broke into their run at last. Hermione, what will happen if we don't get back inside before Dumbledore locks the door? Harry panted. I don't want to think about it, Hermione moaned, checking her watch again. 1 minute! They had reached the end of the corridor with the hospital entrance. Okay, I can hear Dumbledore, said Hermione, tensely. Come on, Harry. They crept along the corridor. Open Dumbledore's back appeared. I'm going to lock you in, they heard him saying. It is 5 minutes to midnight, Miss Granger. 3 turns should do it. Good luck. Dumbledore backed out of the room, closed the door, and took out his wand to magically lock it. Panicking, Harry and Hermione ran forward. Dumbledore looked up, and a wide smile appeared under the silvery mustache. Well, he said quietly. We did it, said Harry breathlessly. Sirius gone. Buckbeak. Dumbledore beamed at them. Well done, I think. He listened intently for a sound within the hospital wing. Yes? I think you've gone too. Get inside and I'll lock you in. Harry and Hermione slipped back inside the dormitory. It was empty except for Ron, who was still lying motionless in the end of the bed. As they locked the click behind them, Harry and Hermione crept back to their own beds, Hermione tucking the time turner back under her robes. A moment later, Madame Pomfrey came striding back out of her office. Did I hear the headmaster leaving? Am I allowed to look after my patients now? She was in a very bad mood. Harry and Hermione thought it best to accept the chocolate quietly. Madame Pomfrey stood over them, making sure they ate it, but Harry could hardly swallow. He and Hermione were waiting, listening, their nerves jangling, and then, as they both took a 4th piece of chocolate from Madame Pomfrey, they heard the distant roar of fury echoing from somewhere above them. What was that? Said Madame Pomfrey in alarm. Now they could hear angry voices growing louder and louder and louder. Madame Pomfrey was staring at the door. Really? They'll wake up everybody up. What do they think they're doing? Harry was trying to hear the voices. They were saying they were drawing near. He must have disapparated Service. We shouldn't have left him with somebody in the room with him. When this gets out, he didn't disapparate, Snape warned. How very close at hand. You can't apparate or disapparate inside this castle. This has something to do with Potter. Service, be reasonable. Harry's been locked up. Bam! The door of the hospital wing burst open. Fudge, Snape, and Dumbledore came striding into the ward. Dumbledore alone looked calm. Indeed, he looked as though he was quite enjoying himself. Fudge appeared angry, but Snape was beside himself. Out with it, Potter! He bellowed. What did you do? Professor Snape, shrieked Madame Pomfrey. Control yourself! See here, Snape, be reasonable, said Fudge. This door's been locked. We just saw. They helped him escape. I know it! Snape howled, pointing at Harry and Hermione. His face was twisted. Spit was flying from his mouth. Calm down, man, Fudge barked. You're talking nonsense. You don't know Potter, shrieked Snape. He did it. I know he did it. That will do, Service, said Dumbledore quietly. Think about what you're saying. This door has been locked since I left the ward 10 minutes ago. Madame Pomfrey gave these students left their beds. Have they left their beds? Of course not, said Madame Pomfrey, bristling. I would have heard them. Well, there you have it, Service, said Dumbledore calmly. Unless you are suggesting that Harry and Hermione are able to be in two places at once, I'm afraid I don't see any point in troubling them further. Snape stood there, seething, staring from Fudge, who looked thoroughly shocked at his behavior, to Dumbledore, whose eyes were twinkling behind his glasses. Snape whirled around, robe swished behind him, and stormed out of the ward. Fellow seems quite unbalanced, said Fudge, staring after him. I'd watch out for him if I were you, Dumbledore. Oh, he's not unbalanced, said Dumbledore quickly. He's just suffered a severe disappointment. He's not the only one, puffed Fudge. The Daily Prophet's going to have a field day. We had Black cornered, and he slipped through our fingers yet again. All I need now is for the story that hippogriff escaped to get out, and I'll be the laughingstock. Well, I'd better go notify the ministry. And the Dementors, said Dumbledore, they'll be removed from school, I trust. Oh, yes, they have to go, said Fudge, returning his fingers distractedly through his hair. Never dreamed they'd attempt to administer the kiss to an innocent boy. Completely out of control. No, I'll have them packed off to Azkaban tonight. Perhaps we should think about dragons at the school entrance. Hagrid would like that, said Dumbledore with a swift smile at Harry and Hermione. As Fudge left the dormitory, Madame Pomfrey hurried to the door and locked it again, muttering angrily to herself, and she headed back into her office. There was a low moan from the other end of the ward. Ron had woken up. You could see him sitting up, rubbing his head, looking around. What happened? He groaned. Harry, why are we all in here? Where's Sirius? Where's Lupin? What's going on? Harry looked at each other. Explained, said Harry, helping himself to some more chocolate. When Harry, Ron, and Hermione left the hospital wing at noon the next day, it was to find an almost deserted castle. The sweltering heat and the end of exams meant that everyone was out taking full advantage of another Hogsmeade visit. Neither Ron nor Hermione felt like going, however, so they and Harry wandered onto the grounds, still talking about the extraordinary events of the previous night and wondering where Sirius and Buckbeak were. Sitting near the lake, watching the giant squid waving its tentacles lazily above the water, Harry lost the thread of his conversation, and he looked across the opposite bank. The stag had galloped toward him from there just last night. A shadow fell across them, and they looked up to see a very bleary-eyed Hagrid, mopping his sweaty face with the side of a table-sized cloth handkerchief and beaming down at them. No, I shouldn't feel happy after what happened last night, he said. I mean, Black escaping again and everything, but guess what? What? He said, pretending to look curious. Beaky, he escaped. He's free. Been celebrating all night. That's wonderful, said Hermione, giving Ron a reproving look because he looked as though he was close to laughing. Yeah, can't have tied him up properly, said Hagrid, gazing happily over the grounds. I was worried this morning, mind you. Thought he might have met Professor Lupin on the grounds, but Lupin says he never ate anything last night." "What?" said Harry quickly. "Blimey, you haven't you heard?" said Hagrid, his smile fading a little. He lowered his voice, even though there was nobody in sight. "Snape told all of Slytherin this morning. Thought everyone knowed by now that Professor Lupin's a werewolf, see? And he went loose on the grounds last night. He's packing now, of course." "He's packing?" said Harry, alarmed. "Why?" "Leaving, isn't he?" said Hagrid, looking surprised that Harry had asked. "Resign. First thing this morning. Says he can't risk happening again." Harry scrambled to his feet. "I'm going to see him," he said to Ron and Hermione. "But if he's resigned, doesn't sound like there's anything we can do." "I don't care. I want to see him. I'll meet you back here." Lupin's office door was open. He had already packed most of his things, and Grindylows' empty tank stood there, an old battered old suitcase, which was now open and nearly full. Lupin was bending over something on his desk. He looked up, only to see Harry had knocked on the door. "I saw you coming," said Lupin, smiling. He pointed to the parchment they had been poring over. "It was on the Marauders map. I just saw Hagrid," said Harry. "He said that you've resigned. It's not true, is it?" "I'm afraid it is," said Lupin. He started opening the desk drawer and taking out the contents. "Why?" said Harry. "The Ministry of Magic don't think you were helping Sirius, do they?" Lupin closed the door behind Harry. "No. Professor Dumbledore managed to convince Fudge that I was trying to save your lives," he sighed. That was the final straw for Service. I think he lost the Order of Merlin, hit him hard. So he, accidentally let it slip that I'm a werewolf this morning at breakfast." "You're not leaving just because of that," said Harry. Lupin smiled wryly. "By this time tomorrow, the owls will start arriving from parents. They will not want a werewolf teaching their children, Harry. And after last night, I see their point. I could have bitten any of you. That must never happen again." "But you're the best defense against arts teacher we've had," Harry said. "Don't go." Lupin shook his head and didn't speak. He carried on emptying his drawers. Then, while Harry was trying to think of a good argument to make him stay, Lupin said, "From what the headmaster told me this morning, you saved a lot of lives last night, Harry. I'm very proud. If I'm proud of anything, it's how much you've learned. Tell me about your Patronus." "How'd you know about that?" Harry asked, distracted. "What else could have driven that Dementor's back?" Harry told Lupin what had happened. When he'd finished, Lupin was smiling again. "Yes, your father always was a stag when he transformed. He said, you guessed right. That was why we called him Prongs." Lupin threw his last few books in his case, closed the desk drawers, turned to Harry. "Here, I brought this from the Shrieking Shack last night," he said, handing Harry his invisibility cloak, "and—" He hesitated and held out the Marauder's map, too. "I'm no longer your teacher, so I don't feel guilty giving you this back. Well, it's no use to me, and I dare say you, Ron, and Hermione will find uses for it." Harry took the map and grinned. "You told me Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs would have wanted to lure me out of school. You said they'd have thought it was funny." "And so we would have," said Lupin, now reaching down to close his case. "I have no hesitation in saying that James would have been highly disappointed if his son had never found any of the secret passages of the castle." There was a knock at the door. Harry hastily stuffed the Marauder's map and invisibility coats into his pocket. It was Professor Dumbledore. He didn't look surprised to see Harry there. "Oh, your carriage is at the gates, Remus," he said. "Thank you, Headmaster." Lupin picked up his old suitcase, emptied the Grindylow tank. "Well, goodbye, Harry," he said, smiling. "It has been a real pleasure teaching you. I feel sure we will meet again sometime. Headmaster, there's no need to see me to the gates. I can manage." Harry had the impression that Lupin wanted to leave as quickly as possible. "Goodbye, then, Remus," said Dumbledore soberly. Lupin shifted the Grindylow tank slightly so that he and Dumbledore could shake hands. Then the final nod to Harry and a swift smile, Lupin left the office. Harry sat down on the vacated chair staring gloomily at the floor. He heard the door close and looked up at Dumbledore, who was still there. "Why so miserable, Harry?" he said quietly. "You should be very proud of yourself after last night." "Didn't make any difference," said Harry bitterly. "Peter Pettigrew got away." "Didn't make any difference," said Dumbledore quietly. "Made all the difference in the world, Harry. You helped uncover the truth. You saved an innocent man from a terrible fate."